You did something strange this morning. You woke up, looked at your phone, felt a small jolt of anxiety, then scrolled anyway. You ate something sweet even though you weren't really hungry. You felt a flash of anger at a stranger online, someone you will never meet, in a conflict that will never affect you. And then you went about your day, calling yourself a rational person. But here's the thing, none of that was rational. None of that was modern. Every single one of those impulses is older than language, older than fire, older than the first human being who ever looked up at the stars and wondered what they were. You think you are a person navigating a complex world, but your body, your nervous system, your deepest emotional wiring, they think you are still out there, in the grass, watching for something that wants to eat you. What if you never actually stopped being an animal? Not metaphorically, not as an insult. What if the thing piloting your decisions every single day is not the rational, self-aware creature you imagine yourself to be, but something far older, far stranger, and far less in control than you have ever been told? This is not a comfortable question, but it is the most honest one you can ask about yourself. Let's go back, far back. About 3.5 billion years ago, the first living cell appeared on this planet. It had one job: survive long enough to copy itself. No brain, no thoughts, no feelings, just chemistry responding to its environment. Move toward food, move away from danger. That impulse, that single primitive drive, is the foundation of everything your nervous system does today. Biologist E.O. Wilson spent decades arguing that human behavior cannot be understood without understanding the deep evolutionary pressures that shaped it. He called it the biological basis of social behavior. What he meant was this: you are not separate from nature. You are nature wearing a shirt and pretending to have a plan. Your brain, the one you are using right now to process these words, is not one thing. It is three things stacked on top of each other, each one built by evolution at a different time, for a different world. The neuroscientist Paul MacLean called this the triune brain. At the base is your reptilian brain, the brain stem and cerebellum, responsible for breathing, heart rate, territorial behavior, and the automatic responses that keep you alive without asking your permission. Above that is your limbic system, sometimes called the mammalian brain, the seat of emotion, memory, and social bonding. And sitting on top of all of that, thin as a sheet of crinkled paper wrapped around the outside, is your neocortex, the part you think of as you, the part that makes plans, tells stories, and builds cities. Here is what no one tells you: those three layers do not cooperate. They argue constantly. Your neocortex says, sleep early tonight. Your limbic system sees a notification and releases a pulse of dopamine. Your reptilian brain hears a loud noise outside and floods your bloodstream with cortisol, before your conscious mind has even registered that a sound occurred. You are not oneself. You are a committee. And the most ancient members of that committee have been voting far longer than the newest one has existed. Think about fear. Not the intellectual idea of fear, the actual physical experience of it. Your palms go wet, your stomach drops, your vision narrows, your muscles tense. This is not something your rational mind produces. This is your body running a program that was written hundreds of millions of years ago, back when your ancestors were small, fast, and constantly being eaten. The neuroscientist Joseph LeDoux spent much of his career mapping what he called the fear circuit, a pathway that runs directly from your sensory organs to your amygdala, completely bypassing your cortex. By the time your rational brain has identified a threat, your body is already responding. You flinch before you think, you feel before you know. That is not a flaw. That was the entire point. The animals who thought first and flinched second got eaten. But here is the twist. That same fear circuit fires today not just at genuine threats, It fires at emails, at social rejection, at the possibility of embarrassment. Your body cannot tell the difference between a predator in the grass and a performance review. The chemical response is identical. The cortisol, the adrenaline, the tunnel vision. Your ancient brain treats the disapproval of your boss the same way it treated the appearance of a lion. You walk into a meeting with your palms sweating and your heart pounding. And part of you knows this is irrational. But the part that knows that is only the newest, thinnest layer. The older parts are already running the show. Look at what you find beautiful. Not what you have been told is beautiful. What makes your chest open involuntarily? The thing you stop and look at without deciding to. Research by the evolutionary psychologist Gordon Orians found that humans across vastly different cultures consistently preferred the same type of landscape: open grassland with scattered trees, proximity to water, slight elevation for visibility, and a sense of refuge nearby. The specific landscape, it turns out, of the African savanna. The exact terrain your ancestors walked for 2 million years. You have never been to that place. You have spent your entire life in cities, in apartments, in offices lit by fluorescent lights. And yet something in you aches for it. Something in you goes quiet when you stand on a hill and look out over open land and see water in the distance. That is not aesthetic preference. That is memory written into your genome. Your body stores time in ways your mind cannot access. Anthropologist Helen Fisher, who spent decades studying romantic love and attachment, found that the neurochemistry of falling in love, the obsession, the intrusive thoughts, the elevated energy, the reduced need for sleep, is nearly identical to the neurochemistry of addiction and to the neurochemistry of anxiety. What you call love at the chemical level is your body running a mating program that was designed to bond you to one person long enough to raise an infant through its most vulnerable years. Not forever, not as a spiritual union, long enough for the child to walk and run and not die immediately without you. Your deepest emotional experience, the one poets have written about for thousands of years, the one that defines your entire interior life, is, at its biological root, a survival mechanism for a small primate's offspring. That does not make it less real. It makes it stranger, it makes it more. Here is what you do every single day that no other animal does quite like you. You tell yourself a story about why you did something after you have already done it. Psychologist Jonathan Haidt called this the rider and the elephant. The elephant is your emotional, intuitive, ancient self. It moves where it wants to move, driven by impulse and instinct. The rider is your rational mind, sitting on top, holding the reins. But the rider does not control the elephant. The rider rationalizes where the elephant already went. You did not decide to feel jealous and then feel jealous. You felt jealous, and then your mind constructed a reason why that jealousy was justified. You did not decide to crave sugar and then crave it. You craved it because your ancestors lived in a world where calorie-dense food was rare and survival depended on consuming it whenever possible, and then your rational brain told you that you deserved a treat. This is not a reason to despair. It is a reason to look more carefully. Every time you feel the pull to check your phone compulsively, that is your social mammal brain scanning for information about your standing in the group. Every time you feel the urge to gossip, that is your ancestors processing social information that could determine who to trust and who to avoid in a tight-knit band of 30 people. Every time you feel the need to be seen, to be recognized, to matter to the people around you, that is your nervous system remembering that exclusion from the group once meant death. These are not weaknesses. They are the operating system of a creature that survived millions of years in genuinely hostile conditions. They were brilliant adaptations. They just were not designed for this world. The philosopher Thomas Nagel once asked, "What is it like to be a bat?" His point was that there are forms of consciousness so different from our own that we cannot fully imagine them. But here is the more uncomfortable question. What is it like to be you? Not the you that narrates your experience, but the ancient pre-verbal mammalian creature underneath the narration. The one that is always listening, always scanning, always asking whether you are safe, whether you belong, whether you heavy enough. You carry that creature everywhere, into every conversation, into every ambition, into every fear at 3 a.m. that you cannot quite name. It does not go away because you've become educated. It does not go away because you live in a warm house with food in the refrigerator. It was built across millions of years, and it has been with your lineage for longer than your species has had a name for itself. So the next time you feel an emotion you cannot explain, a flash of envy, a sudden longing, an inexplicable fear, a need to belong so strong it catches you off guard, you might try something different. Instead of calling it irrational, instead of pushing it down, ask yourself, what was this for? Because somewhere, in a world that no longer exists, in a body that looked almost like yours but not quite, in a moment you will never remember, this feeling kept someone alive. And that someone was you.